We are broadcasting. Welcome. I see participant numbers are rising. Welcome to Training Tuesday. This is the financial relief for local churches. I'm going to give everybody a minute to begin logging in and signing on, just so that there is no confusion from our participants. Wow, up to 325. Welcome.
Wow.
This is a webinar feature, participants, so you can see us. We cannot see you, nor can you see each other. So just realize that we can see, you can see us. A couple of housekeeping items before we begin. You'll notice on the bottom of your screen as we're getting started that there is a chat feature. The chat feature has been disabled for participants. If you have a question, please use the Q&A feature. I also noticed some people raising their hands already. You don't have to raise your hand, just type in your question, and we will get to them as soon as we can, because wow, we're already up to 505, so that is wonderful. Welcome. I am Bill Brown. I am the Director of New Faith Expressions for the Baltimore-Washington Conference. My colleague, Reverend Rodney Smothers, and I in the Office of Leadership and Congregational Development host Training Tuesdays, and tonight we have put together, with the help of our CFO, Paul Eichelberger, a fabulous panel to help discuss some of the financial relief options that are available in the midst of the coronavirus crisis that we are facing. I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves really quickly, and I will call on you since you're all in different orders, and I'm going to start with Paul. Unmute yourselves, people, as you're about to talk so we can hear you. Thank you.
Probably sounds better. Hi, Bill. Paul Eichelberger, Conference Treasurer, and I appreciate everybody who is turning out tonight to hear our webinar. Thank you.
Frank, you get to go next.
Awesome. Frank Robert, Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation. Thanks for having me on here, and it's a great opportunity to help our churches.
Kayla.
Hi, Kayla Spears, Business Data Administrator at the Baltimore-Washington Conference.
Eric.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Alsgaard. I'm the Managing Editor in Communications for the Baltimore-Washington Conference.
Dave.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Scholler, and I'm Business Data Analyst at the conference, and I work in the Finance Department.
Thank you. Pierre.
Hi, I'm Pierre McPayton. I'm the Controller of the Baltimore-Washington Conference.
Daryl.
Hi, I'm Daryl Williams. I'm the Vice Chair of the Council on Finance and Administration and the pastor of St. Paul Church in Oxon Hill.
Bruce.
Hi, I'm Bruce Beveridge. I'm the Finance Chair at Mount Carmel United Methodist Church.
Francis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Francis Tego, the Director of HR and Benefits at the Conference Mission Center.
And definitely last but not least, we are blessed to be joined by our resident bishop, Bishop Easterling. Welcome. I know you can't stay long, so welcome. And I know you'll open us in prayer.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be asked to participate in this webinar, and I'm so grateful for the servant leaders who are offering their expertise and their guidance as we live through these difficult times due to the pandemic that has gripped our globe. I'm grateful also for the leaders in our local churches who are shouldering up under these uncharted waters and being faithful to one another and faithful to the communities they serve. And so, beloved, let us go to the Lord in prayer. Emmanuel, God with us, we proclaim you as Alpha and Omega, our beginning and our end, our hope and our help this night. You are our burden bearer and way maker. You are God all by yourself. You have instructed your children that your ear is always inclined to their prayers, and so we pray this night. We confess that we are a hurting and a wounded people. You know our present circumstance and the crisis we are experiencing with the scourge of COVID-19. You know the sickness that has gripped your globe, the death that has befallen your beloved, the isolation that has constricted your creation. You know, Holy God, and you have given us faith equal to the challenge. But faith is not tested in the crucible of comfort. Faith is not tested in, oh God, times of ease. It is tested in the sting of lament, in the raging waters of uncertainty, in the darkness of night when dawn seems afar off. It is tested in the wilderness. But faith that waits on the Lord survives. It survives to sing songs of praise, to reach the shores of certainty, to witness the sun rising, and to emerge into the promised land. And when you have led us through this COVID-19 wilderness into the promised land of healing and wholeness, may we never again take for granted the opportunity to gather in corporate worship. May we never again take for granted the ability to move about freely. May we never again take for granted the warmth of a neighbor's embrace. May we never again take for granted our ability to simply breathe clean, fresh air. We give thanks, oh God, for the ability to serve you in this way. I give thanks for the panelists and their servant leadership. Bless every hand that contributed to this presentation tonight. Through it, bless your people. Inform that we might conform. Instruct that we might construct. Inspire that we might conspire to be your beloved community. We ask all of this in the matchless name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus the Christ. Amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Bishop. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
During this time, and we will see you soon.
Bless you.
Bless you. Now, we've already had a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to answer some real quickly. First and foremost, for all those wondering what we'll cover, stay tuned. You'll find out by the end what we've covered. For those who are worried about taking notes, this is being recorded. We will have it on the website by tomorrow morning. We will also have the slides available as well, so you can follow along. So don't worry about missing anything. But you've gotten to see who we are. You've heard a little bit about who we are. We want to do a couple of quick polls so we can find out a little bit about you. So let's just find out. Question 1. Which are you? Are you a lay person or clergy? Just select one. I'm going to give a few moments to answer that. You people are quick at answering. It's like you were anticipating questions this evening. Not that it's a competition, but lay people looking good. We'll give out the answers momentarily. Okay, we're going to close out that first poll. Let's see. Wow, 73% of our attendees are laity and 27% are clergy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Poll number 2, just to find out where you are in our annual conference, let us know what district your church is located in. Alrighty. Now, okay, we're going to close out this poll. It looks like voting has slowed down. Let's share those results. There's my computer's working a little faster. It looks pretty even. Greater Washington slightly ahead, but not that this is a competition, but I know some people like bragging rights. We'd like to know what role you play in the local church. So just select one, whichever role you play the most, you're most active in. I do notice people raising their hands. You don't need to do that. If you have a question, use the Q&A feature that is on the bottom of your screens. We will try to get to as many of the questions as possible tonight. Anything we don't answer, there will be a FAQ that will be produced after this evening. So hopefully you'll be able to get all of the answers you're looking for. Okay, it looks like voting is slowed down. We're going to end this poll. And most of you are with finance committees or the pastor of a local church. So welcome. Those are some great roles. And let's see, last but not least, did your church offer online giving prior to March 15th? Nice shout out from Reverend Deb. I will try to get closer to the mic, Deb. Thank you. And it looks like voting is slowing down. So let's end that poll. And excellent. Most of you were offering online giving prior to all of this. And for those who have not or are not, we're going to get you up to speed tonight. And so without further ado, let's move into our first presenter. Is going to be Paul Eichelberger, who is our CFO. And you can all see my cheats on my screen as we get this launched. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to start off tonight with three presentations that go back to back. It's not a lot of slides. We're going to start with myself, and then Pierre is going to follow up. And then Daryl's going to speak on behalf of the CFA, where he serves as vice chair. And then that will be a good stopping point. I want to introduce tonight as kind of, I think we all needed a conference call to kind of compare notes. I think we have all been reading everything that's been coming out about the CARES Act. There's a lot of activity at the state levels that are giving financial packages and financial reliefs. I think we can stew that down tonight to make it fairly simple. So what we're going to talk about tonight are going to be two grants. And I think they apply to every one of our churches. There are some exclusions that are held outside of Maryland, but for all churches, the new grants that are coming out of the CARES Act, I think are going to be directly applicable to us. And it's very timely. If you're trying to keep up on all the information, it can make your head spin right now. So getting together tonight gets us a chance to find out what questions we have, because the CARES Act is going to be coming out near the end of this week, beginning of next week is what we start hearing from banks that are going to be applying, they're going to be opening up applications. And some of this is really too early. We still have some questions being raised by Westpath on exactly how the CARES Act will apply to churches. So just know there's going to be a lot of things that we don't know for sure tonight, but I think we can find a good place of direction from tonight. And I'm hoping to give you a couple tools as you start thinking this through at your local church level. So Bill, let's center ourselves on this first slide that allows us to see some of the activities that have already been published on our website. Many of you are already familiar with this. So Bill, I don't think that I'm going to be able to point the way that we're doing this, right? So you're on mute.
Mute your mic, please, Bruce.
So Bill, I want you to point to the 3-month waiver.
I've got so many screens open here, right here.
Okay, so what I want to do here a little bit, folks, is talk about what our strategy has been during this last month of March. And it is to try to take the funds that are going from local churches into the conference. We're trying to mitigate those and stop them as much as possible. The ones that we're able to take action on with the Board of Pensions is a 3-month waiver on the direct billing. That's $2.6 million over a 3-month period for the churches. We also worked with the trustees to stop and defer 3 months worth of any loans that are outstanding with the conference trustees. That's 32 churches. Now, in combination with this 3-month waiver for those of the churches that have direct benefit billing, Bill, point to the small church grants. The $321,000 for the small church grants is a comparable benefit to those churches who do not have direct billing benefits today. When I looked at with the Board of Pensions at the total amount of benefit that the 2.6 million was for local churches, it was about 22% of their compensation packages. And so the small church grants was something the Board of Pensions felt compelled to do to match a 22% of the cash salaries that are being paid to part-time, usually quarter-time pastors in smaller churches. They're giving the same 3 months. They're going to get a check in early April that is the total of those 3 months. That's going to be about a check of $1,500 to $2,000 for each small church. And there's 252 churches in that category. We continue to recognize that the budget for 2020 actually had $1.1 million already budgeted for grants to local churches. There was an additional $615,000 that has been carved out of the budget by the CFA based on expected underruns for things like travel and events. This is being put together as new relief grants for local churches. It's going to be put in with the sustentation funds that are handled by the district superintendents. This is our emergency fund to be able to help anybody who finds themselves in dire straits. This is going to last us for a while. So the drawdown on that can be about maybe 100,000 or 200,000 the first month, 100,000 after that is what we start thinking there. And we would like to go on a campaign of encouraging any of the government checks that come into our members and all of our congregants that if they're no longer in need of those because they're gainfully employed, we'd love to have those contributed directly to the local churches to help in this time of need.
Paul, we got a couple of questions directly related to what you're presenting. How would a church know if they fulfill to be in the small church grant group?
A letter is going to be sent, and let's see now, who knows the exact timing on this? So Dave and Francis.
If you are muted and you are being asked to talk, don't forget to unmute yourself, Dave or Francis.
Okay, so I'll take that one. So for the small church grants, the letter is projected to go out by the end of the day tomorrow. So they will know. And then Francis, do you know on the direct benefit or the relief grants?
No. So the relief grants are separate. So those are working through the district superintendents. And so as soon as the letters go out, you'll get a couple, that will be your confirmation for the smaller churches that you are included in this plan.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Another question, a couple of people are asking about churches that pay pension but not medical.
The pension was part of the calculation that it's a 3-month waiver on the pension alone, yes.
Will they qualify for the small church grant since they don't pay medical?
If they're paying pension, they're in that category. The small church grants are for those churches who have absolutely no benefit billing, direct billing.
All right, thank you, Paul. Carry on.
Okay, let's go. We'll get to some new material here. I wanted to put this before everyone to see what the roadmap is that the CFA and all of the stewardship committees, the trustees and the Board of Pensions are working on. And March activities are on the left, and then the future from here today on is on the right-hand side. March felt like, for me at least, it felt like it had 622 days. So we're on the 622nd of March. And these are the accomplishments that the different committees were able to pursue. You've seen these on the other side, on the other first sheet: benefit waiver, the small church grants, the trustee loan deferrals, the supplemental initiatives, the 615 for the relief grants, the online giving focus, as well as recognizing the trustee loan and grants that were made for brick and mortar out of the trustees. What you have not seen yet is the fact that the CFA also put together a $1.1 million reduction in the 2020 budget on March 25th. That's an 8% of the overall budget. So I think that this type of roadmap works for churches as well. When we got done with March and we were able to do what we thought was the focus on immediate relief, these all meant something to allow us to acknowledge that we met a major milestone. The next milestone that we believe that we're focusing on is April. So it's very pertinent that we have this conversation tonight as we talk about the focus on payroll continuity. I think this is the next challenge for all of our churches. And the streams of additional funding, alternate funding, is what we're really focused on tonight, talking about what government grants are going to be available, what is available now, what will be made available. We have Frank on here to talk about the Mid-Atlantic Foundation, efforts that they're doing to bring line of credits, especially for those who have deposits with the foundation, but we'll talk more about that. I kind of list these in order. I think the government grants is first, the Mid-Atlantic second, the government loans and local banks, I believe, is the third stream that we need to consider for this alternate funding streams. And then, and because some of these loans are 2.7% and significant amounts being offered by SBA loans and things like that. So just know that I don't throw those out. We're not going to talk heavily about those tonight because I believe that there's enough up here in the government grants to keep us busy for a while. And then the fourth one is still the conference loans. This is our backup. This is really, this is set up as an endowment fund that the trustees monitor, and it's truly meant for brick and mortar types of activities. But that will apply for some churches. As we get through April with the payroll continuity, just know that the CFA and all the other stewardship committees are going to be looking at if we're still in this and May requires additional action, especially on the conference budget. They will take off the shelf, which is something they've had on the shelf. We've talked about this at annual conference and pre-cons for a couple years now. We blew right through the 10% contingency plan. So that's really what's been baked into the 8% reduction and plus the 615 going back as relief grants. We're now sitting on the shelf with a 15% and a 25% contingency plan. My hope is that churches also have contingency plans like this. It comes with a lot of comfort in knowing what the next round is going to be and when the trigger hits for you to take that action. We did not see the action for the conference budget that required us to take the 15%. But when you get to a 15 and a 25% contingency, it does talk about restructuring the conferences, restructuring districts. It goes into a lot of those fundamental questions, and we're just not at that point yet. So the CFA is able to take a look at that, know that that's a next step if we're still in trouble in the May timeframe. And then in June, just know that be reassured that the committees are able to relook at some of these 3 months initiatives that were put in place for April, May, and June. It does become a stretch. So these are significant programs that they've already approved. So it doesn't come without a lot of discernment in knowing what the right steps would be, but just know that that is another avenue to get us through July, August, and September. Bill, I'll continue on.
Well, I'm gonna stop you. The questions are coming fast and furious, Paul. Are the letters going to be emailed or regular mail? And to whom will they be addressed?
Dave, can you answer that?
You're still muted, Dave. Now you're
there. We go. Lost my mute button. The letters will all go out via email, and they will have a breakdown of the relief amounts and on a pastor by pastor basis if there's multiple pastors serving in the church.
Who will they be going to?
We're going to finance chair, treasurer, and pastors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And a question also come up, Paul, for the small church grant. Is there an application, or is that grant automatically going out because they don't pay pension or medical?
Automatically going out. It's been screened by your district administrators and district superintendents.
Okay, thank you.
If you do not get a letter and you suspect that you should be getting a letter, the right time to call is on Monday. Not Monday, Dave, it would be the day after, so today's not Thursday. So let's get the right day. So today's Tuesday, they're going out Wednesday night. Wednesday. Right. Call us on Thursday if you haven't received it.
Correct.
All righty. You may carry on, Paul.
622 days in March. Okay. I said we're going to make it simple. I'm connected a lot with the treasurer's listserv of all the conference treasurers. I know that a lot of the finance committees and finance chairs and pastors are out reading everything that we know in the consultant world that's coming in and talking about what the CARES Act provides. I'm going to stew this down for us to 2 grants. I think it becomes very simple. I'm not going to oversimplify the world. We'll tell you there are other things out there, but these are the 2 I think that are worthy of our attention as local churches. The first one is at the state level. The state level, unfortunately, only benefits Maryland at this time. There is no West Virginia or DC similar grants currently in the mix. But this Maryland grant called the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Grant Fund was put in place, and we have, I know of churches who have made this application. The link is shown right here on the slide. If you take a picture of that, that's one way to get this really quickly. But just know all of these slides will be available for your reference with communications. The amount of this loan is up to $10,000. It's used for covering 3 months of operating expenses. It is nice for some of our churches because the fundamental premise of this is to demonstrate the loss of income from tenants or the inability to make loan payments. Those are the 2 fundamental reasons. They say that they will go case by case and review other situations that to get put before them. But I do think for churches, this is the one that we can look at for the most with the loss of income, especially from the loss of preschool income. And this is a significant number for churches. Churches have been leveraging tithes and offerings by getting other sources of income. Just recognize that if you're that church that has a lot of alternate income that comes in for maintaining the ministry of the church, this is a grant that can help you. It can be used for payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, and other operating expenses. Because it's in the state of Maryland, you have to keep track. If you are an incorporated church, you're going to want to start now in working on your good standing status if you don't currently have that. And just as the quick reminder, if you don't deal with these every day, the good standing status only comes by making sure that you've submitted your Form 1 annual report to the Department of Labor, I think is what they call themselves now in the state of Maryland. So incorporated churches only need to be in good standing. That is the Form 1. If you look for Form 1 on the Baltimore and the DLLR website, you'll be able to find the application, and it's done online. I personally have done this through the grant process. It took me 1 hour. It took me 1 hour because I had to go look up the industry code with the Department of Labor. I had to pull 2 years worth of financial statements. That was about it. This is a very simple process. And if you have a loss of income, it should be really simple for you to be able to identify, here is the cause. It does ask you to identify, here is my statement of why I lost income. And for many churches, it's simply going to be the Governor Hogan's declaration that declared closures of churches. It's the Governor Hogan one that I would prefer you put on there. I don't want to get this entangled with whether the conference itself was the action and whether the state recognizes the conference as being an appropriate action. You're much stronger on these situations if you put down what the state required of us. Bill, that's a good stopping point if there are questions.
A couple of questions have come in. I just lost it, so just give me a second. Now, the grants that are being available through the government that you mentioned, are these for local churches to apply to, or will the annual conference be applying?
No, these are for local churches. The conference will do one as well. The conference, we're going to work with Chris Schlickert And we're going to do one for the camps. When the camps closed, we lost the income for at least a month here. And we can certainly show justification for more than a $10,000 loss in income.
Now, one person is asking about income from summer education programs that they would start getting in now. Does that qualify?
I believe that they're going to look back at the past 2 years and understand what your normal income flow would be for an event like that. And that might be justification for saying that you would normally have had income from a summer event today.
Okay, let's, and a number of people are asking, these are grants, not loans. So they
absolutely grants. These do not get paid back.
All right. For those who have been asking, we're going to reiterate a lot. The slides will be available tomorrow morning at bwcumc.org, the conference website, and a recording of tonight's webcast will also be on the conference website tomorrow. So if you miss anything, don't worry. You can go back and look at it tomorrow. All the links, all of the data will be available tomorrow.
We've built tonight's presentation to allow you to understand from Bruce, who's done this for Mount Carmel. So we're going to touch this one more time, folks, and you'll be able to hear Bruce's experience of going through this whole application process and how he justified the application.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the second content slide. I said that we're going to make this simple. The first one was a Maryland grant. This is one that is open to everyone in America, nonprofits and such. Churches are all included in this. This is the most confusing one. That it's called the CARES Act overall, but the Paycheck Protection Program is the aspect of the grant that's being provided inside of the CARES Act. And this is being when you think of the CARES Act, you can download a document that has more than 100 pages in it. We're going to stew it down to one slide here, and it's just this one grant. I believe that this is the one stronghold that we should all be targeting. The link is shown right below this, and this is one I made reference to before. Westpath is part of the Church Alliance, and they've been working closely with the SBA on implementation regulations. So it's not always obvious when somebody approves legislation that you know exactly how to apply it to churches. And so there's all of that has been happening this weekend, and they were given no more than 15 days from the approval of the act to be able to implement the regulations. What I'm starting to hear from banks, BB&T told us today that they would most likely know something on Friday or Monday. Now, we've also heard from other banks who said at the local level they knew nothing about this, and they told people to go look at the SBA website because all of the SBA loans are online. If you've heard that story, just know that I believe that we're solid on this, that the SBA, this part, the Paychecks Protection Program, will all be administered by SBA lenders. And SBA lenders, there's this link here that identifies all the SBA lenders in Maryland. So it's the third or fourth line there. Now, I can't see whether you can really see me or not. Can you see this?
We can, Paul, but it's very small print.
Well, you don't have to read the detail. So this is the list of all the SBA loan lenders in the state of Maryland. More than 120. So I just want you to know that most likely the bank that you have the relationship with your local church is going to be one of those SBA lenders. It's very appropriate for you to start the conversation with them now. They are the ones who know you the best, and you should be asking them some very good questions about when this will be available and ready for launching in applications. The lenders will actually determine your eligibility and credit worthiness. Okay, it sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a loan process, but the federal government says it's going to be a simplified loan process. But I still do think you're going to have to be prepared to have all your financial statements. This one actually gets, it's going to require a lot of payroll and headcount. So it's very good that churches know that they need to get their payroll records together for what you've paid out for the last 2 years. And I think you should also know your headcounts over the last 2 years. I would actually know that by the types of ministry that you have as well. If you have a preschool, I think I'd like to know how much payroll you had for your preschool and how much headcount you had for your preschool. I think I'd like to know it for other major ministries in the church as well. So just know that this is a loan application process that you're going through, and there will be some paperwork that you want to collect. And if you're able to go into a bank early next week, now is the right time to be collecting those forms. Now, the amount of this loan is going to be, the loan is going to be up to 2.5 times the average monthly payroll costs from the prior year. 2.5 times the average monthly payroll costs from the prior year. So they're essentially trying to fund you, I believe they're trying to fund you for 2 months worth of operating expenses here. And the operating expenses that they're going to allow you to pay with these funds, cash salary, there's a question mark on housing allowance because this is something that the Church Alliance has to work out, whether the housing allowance is going to be in or out of this appropriate use. The employer paid benefits, payment for mortgages, excuse me, I gotta clarify this one. It's payment for the mortgage interest. It's the payment of debt interest. So it's only the interest that they're willing to pay. You can see this as being an advantage. What they're trying to do is make sure that the banks are getting the interest on the money that's loaned out so that they can stay actively engaged with the communities.
Couple of questions coming in, Paul.
Rent and utilities. Bill, if I can finish up the slide, then I'll break and take a couple questions.
Perfect.
Thanks. Okay, so that's what it can be used for. Now, the key for this loan that we're going to have to think through is going to be this aspect of, and I got to move all my faces here. Hold on. They're converging with my print. The loans will be converted to a grant if, and that means the loan is forgiven if receipts are submitted to the bank that show the full amount of the loan was spent over 8 weeks on qualified expenses. Okay, so it's initially a loan. It becomes a grant as long as you have documented expenses over an 8-week period that spent all of the money that they gave you. And for purposes of BWC, we're going to treat this as a grant application that does not require a church conference. The church conference only comes into play if it does not a forgiven grant or forgiven loan, and it actually turns into a loan after the 8-week period. And I've got a nice chart for explaining that. But Bill, let's take some questions now, and then we'll go to the chart to explain it in more detail.
And just for clarity, this is a federal program, Paul, so it's for all jurisdictions, correct?
Absolutely. This, contrary to the last slide, this applies within the district as well as West Virginia and Maryland.
And some people are responding that they're being told to begin applying on Friday when the program goes live.
I believe the program, so when I go on PNC, I see that they're setting up to have a link to get me into an application mode. I don't believe this is going to be the SBA. I believe it's going to be at each individual bank that you'll do that. And from the conversations that I hear, I don't think every bank's going to be ready on Friday.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And someone asked about Celine is asking about a catch-22. Since the conference is suspending pension payments for the next 3 months, how will a church be able to prove that they're paying pension?
Yep. It is the point. So I've not talked about this with the Board of Pensions yet, so we don't have an official ruling, but I think what I would say here, if you apply and you get this money, You pay everything else. You pay you're going to get a sum of money, and you're going to pay your cash salary, and you're going to pay your interest, and you're going to pay your rent if it applies, and your utilities. And you're going to pay all that first. If you still need to spend some money before the 8 weeks is up, I would suggest that what you do is because you're going to have to pay it back. It's a loan, so you're going to have to pay it back. So I would recommend at that point that you pay it on benefits, bring it back into the Board of Pensions, put them more into reserves, and that gives the Board of Pensions that additional capacity that they might need should we need to submit this for another 3 months down the road.
Okay, and last question from this round, Paul. Jenny asks, if a church has its own preschool, should the church and the preschool apply, or should they roll? And I'm going to add, or should they roll all of the payroll into one?
So I believe this is an entity issue. So if you're a separately incorporated preschool, I think you might want to keep these as two separate organizations, but that doesn't apply to all churches. A lot of churches do this all under the same tax ID.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Can I go to my pretty chart?
Is that your pretty chart? There you go.
Yeah, I think we can sell this to the other conference treasurers. I didn't send it to them in case you have modifications for tonight, but I do think that this is a worksheet that could help us in understanding this PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. So Bill, it's hard with not having the pointer here. So let's go over to step 1 column. There's going to be a loan origination date, and prior to that, you're applying at a bank. Step 1 is going to be calculate the maximum amount available during your application process. And we saw back on the last slide that is the maximum amount is defined as 2.5 times the average monthly payroll costs. I don't want to get too complicated in that because you can read a lot of things about how they're going to calculate payroll costs. So let's just simplify that and say the bank will tell you what the maximum amount is that you qualify for. I want us to be aware that it's this next section, but don't ask for more than 8 weeks of qualified expenses, because I think this is the first step to ensure that the church will qualify for a full loan forgiveness, and you won't end up having to have a church conference or a church conference and then submit and formally create a loan for yourself, because you're trying to stipulate this to be just a grant. So this spreadsheet is going to help us understand some of the key areas for us to make sure that it's just considered a grant. And so we have a nice table. Bill, you're pointing right to it now. The qualified expenses paid by church for 8 weeks. I think this is the right part of the spreadsheet for you to put down. What are your payroll costs, your benefits, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities? Total those up ahead of time and compare that number then to what this 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost will be. We'll see an example on this later in the call. So I want you to just know that you're going to compare that total 8 weeks to a 2.5 times the salary. For a lot of churches, it's going to be 2.5 times the salary. That's the stipulation here. And you'll have no problem spending all that they'll give you in 8 weeks. Those are the churches that have high interest. Those are the churches that have high utilities. They definitely will be able to spend this all in 8 weeks. But if you're in a small church, 2.5 times your salary might actually be 2.5 months worth of total expenses almost. If you don't have any interest payments, and if your utilities are very low, you could get in trouble if you're a very small church and your 2.5 times the salary cannot all be spent in 8 weeks. So during the 8-week period, let's look at this. Bill, you're going to point to that middle column? Okay, step 2. Everything in red keeps you out of trouble and makes you a grant and not a loan. The first one is spend the full amount received within 8 weeks. This is right under step 2. If you spend it all within 8 weeks of the origination date, you'll receive full forgiveness. In addition, you must keep receipts because they're all going to be turned into the bank. And if you do that properly and document your expenses for the 8 weeks, you'll get full loan forgiveness. And what the bank is also checking is you must only claim qualified expenses. So the qualified expenses are payroll, benefits, interest, rent, and utilities. If that's the only thing you claimed against those monies, you'll get full loan forgiveness. The problem becomes if you don't spend it all in 8 weeks, or you mess up and you don't keep receipts, or you spend it on, or you're trying to claim things that are not qualified expenses, you're going to fall into this week 9+. The unspent monies are going to become a loan. You'll have a loan through the SBA, but it will be monitored by your bank. And the terms on that loan really are not, these are not harmful loan terms. It's paid back in 10 years, less than 4% interest is what they're going to do. They're going to allow churches to defer for 6 months to 12 months. So it's not a onerous type of terms that they're going to put on this loan, but I want you to know up front how to make this into a grant and not a loan. If you go into a loan, then we'll pull in the polity of the church conference at the very end. And Bill, that's my slide 6.
All right, Paul, wow, you are popular with the questions. Let me see if I can get through some of these quickly. If a church is not incorporated, can they still apply, or should they use the general church's 501c3 designation?
No, you don't have to be incorporated in order to apply for the loan.
And what constitutes as a financial statement?
Financial statement that I believe will have the right detail for what they're looking for is by month, all of your income and all of your expenses. So I would see that as being a spreadsheet, January through December with a total for the year, income on top, expenses below. Page 1, possibly more additions to that, is year 1, and then a whole set for year 2.
If a church has an endowment.
Excuse me, Bill, let me finish that up. So, and get that into a scanned format so that you're ready to link it to an online application.
And if a church has an endowment, do they still qualify for these grants?
They don't look at any assets behind the scene on what you have. They simply are recognizing loss of income.
All right, I think that covers us right now.
Well, Bill, we're going to change speeds and we're going to shift it over to Pierre, who's going to do a couple slides, and then Daryl will finish us up.
All righty, go ahead, Pierre. If you're muted, Pierre, unmute yourself. You are muted. Go ahead, Pierre. I took care of it. You're live.
Paul, I didn't know whether or not you wanted to go over the secondary relief measures and the CARE Act. For example, the employee retention credit, the deferral of employer's share of the Social Security payroll tax, and there is a charitable giving that's encouraged, which allows people to have a $300 charitable deduction for those who do not itemize. These are additional relief measures that can be taken by the local church.
Yeah, Pierre, I'll build on that just a little bit. So this is the simplification. We concentrated on the 2 grants that are available. I just want to also let you know that there are line of sight things that also will benefit churches that are in the CARES Act. I believe that they go above I believe these are things you want to talk to your financial experts, your CPAs that you touch, and look into each one of these. The Cohn-Resnick link that I have at the top here is a good reference for you to understand the details of each one. I know a lot of conferences that are delving into the details of each one of these. I think it complicates the picture on how you need to proceed for the next week and a half. These are the things you'll consider longer term, and they'll become more obvious to us on how to actually deal with those. Thank you, Pierre.
Okay. Well, we know that this is next slide. We know this is a very stressful time for everyone. It's extremely stressful for the financial ministry of the local church. Now, an important next step is to evaluate how these financial assistance grants and loans can be used with the cash available to meet some of the immediate needs and obligations of the church ministry. One approach that each church needs to take is to look at the large buckets that you have at the local church, particularly at their budget. Those two large buckets are their income and the expenses. So I'm going to use this slide to try to apply some of those benefit release grants and loans to assist the local church. And this will help minimize some of the current financial impact of COVID-19. So we're going to use a financial statement format. So we first begin with the income, tithes and offerings. Normally, this is one of the major sources of income to the local church. Now, during this time, funds may decline significantly. So there are some things that can be done to help mitigate or decrease this decline. One is to encourage online giving. There are some churches that do have access to online giving and some are not utilizing it. There's some churches that do not have online giving, and we do have some information on the website, and some of the other panelists will talk about that a little further. Reach out to those who may need some extra encouragement to give, both inside and don't forget those outside of the local church. This also is a great opportunity to utilize your youth's ability to use the internet and social media to locate additional funding. And be creative in receiving your funds. There are those who will not pay online. There are those who do have checks. You need to find ways to have those persons' checks be picked up or dropped off at the church. And there are other creative ways that you can receive funds. Some of the churches have additional or relying upon tenant income. However, that rental income may not be available due to the church closing, loss of income from tenants and other ways, or other COVID-19 issues. And in this case, as Paul mentioned earlier, those persons in Maryland could be eligible for the Maryland Emergency Relief Grant, which is up to $10,000. So those are ways that additional income can come in. Then we go to the second bucket. The second bucket expenses, the first one is payroll. Payroll is a very critical expense. Employees are depending on funds from resources to pay their bills and to take care of their needs. So before it was mentioned the Paycheck Protection Program. This is a program that can be used to supplement the payroll for salary. The second line in expenses where funds can be used or help with decreasing some of the costs are, we have been very blessed to have the Board of Pension who had reserves were able to provide 3 months of relief for medical and pension. This can free up some resources for other expenses and including payroll. A similar benefit would be provided for the small churches. And then we go to other staff payroll. Funds can be received for the Paycheck Protection Program up to 8 weeks. So this should assist in providing payroll for other staff. The next one is mortgage principal. Do not assume that a bank or your lender is going to automatically assume that you're not going to pay your mortgage. You need to discuss this with the bank. You need to talk to the bank. Most banks are being encouraged to work with individuals and organizations, take the opportunity to negotiate terms for deferrals or even reductions. So I approach the bank, talk to the bank, discuss it with the bank or other lender. Mortgage interest. Now the Paycheck Protection Program can also, if you apply to that, that can defer the interest on the loan. So that is something that can be used to help minimize the impact. Also for those churches that are renting, most of the states have a stay of eviction, so have been put in place. Like Maryland, I think it's 60 days. So you need to contact the landlords to make arrangements to discuss how you can defer rental payments. Utilities. Utilities can also use the Paycheck Protection Program to decrease some of the cash outlay that's needed in the near future. Most of the utility companies are saying that they are suspending cutoffs and late fees for at least a month, and we expect it to go further. So use that opportunity to keep cash at hand. The other operating expenses, defer the payments if at all possible. Look at your contracts for clauses that say in certain situations, then it will automatically be deferred. Communicate with your with the vendors. Talk to them about reductions, get discounts. Contact them so they can make other arrangements. And also, because you may be saving some monies for grants or loans or not doing other things like events, you can potentially reallocate those funds for community relief. There will be church people in the local church who will be hurting, that will have special needs. So you can potentially reallocate funds for community relief. In the mission share area, make your best efforts at this time, but talk to the DSs, keep them informed.
Pierre, that is the #1 question that's been popping up. Mission shares. Can you please repeat what you just said?
Mission shares. Make your best effort on a short term, but please just keep your DS informed. That's the important thing. Keep your DS informed.
Thank you, Pierre. All right, I think we're ready to move on, Paul, to Reverend Darrell Williams, who is the Vice Chair of the Conference Council on Finance and Administration. If you're muted, Darrell, unmute yourself.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
All right. Kind of talking as the Vice Chair of CFA right now. We meet as CFA on a very regular basis. And one of the things that has allowed us to be strong as a conference is that people do pay their mission shares as we transition in that conversation. We have had very significant collection rates even over the last couple of years. So because of those collection rates, we've had the ability to have reserves and other things which allow some of these things in this emergency to happen. So the conference budget for 2020 is based on a collection rate of 91%. It is, we met last week and we are aware that that is unlikely to happen. That was kind of in a normative operating thing. But now that we're certainly not in normative operations, at the end of February, as you can see from the slide, we were at about 84 to 85%, which is projecting a significant shortfall and an emergency of about $1 million. That difficulty is mitigated by the fact that we've got some reserves. But on March 25th, the CFA cut the 2020 budget by $1.1 million, which is about 8%. And we reallocated $615,000 of that for local church relief. So for some people, the question might be, how is the conference doing some of those things from those earlier slides where you have relief to local churches and grants and those sort of things? We've changed the budget and cut the budget to put money in place for local church relief. We understand, and you know, I'm a local church pastor. I understand because I'm living through it like everybody else. It's simply, we simply don't have the revenue that we did. And the ability of the CFA to give some relief is what we've talked about over the last month and we'll continue to talk about as this continues to go on. And really what we're trying to do is balance the relief measures, but we want churches to do their best with their mission shares. Now, let's talk about what do your best means. When we say do your best, we understand that you don't have the stream of revenue that you did. And we also understand that according to the discipline, one of the first things you're supposed to pay are salaries. But because of things like the CARES Act and other places, we may be able to offset some of that salary with grant money. But what we're asking people to do is make a good faith effort on mission shares. The reason we need that good faith effort is that good faith effort is what allows the grant programs, allows the loan programs, and allows the conference the flexibility to support churches in these times. So we want you to do that, but also, as we've said, let your DS know. If you're not going to get yelled at for saying, listen, we're behind, because everybody's behind right now. So you're not going to get yelled at. You're not going to be looked down upon, but it allows us to do cash flow planning, which all of us are trying to do in local churches. We're trying to look and see, what do we have coming in and how does that balance what we have to have going out? CFA is asking you to do the same thing. We're asking you to, if you can't pay your mission shares or you can't pay them in full, let your DSs know so they can report that up the line so that we can make appropriate management decisions around the budget and around the income that we can expect. And last but not least, the CFA is also committing to each church that we'll continue to monitor conference finances closely, which we are. We're meeting on the regular basis, at least monthly and often in between, and we'll continue to make future adjustments. It's the weird thing that we just don't know when this is going to end. And because we don't know when it's going to end, we have covenanted as a CFA that Zoom will be our best friend, and we will meet as much as we have to be able to plan properly to not just help the local churches, but also to plan and distribute the conference finances.
Thank you very much, Daryl. I think we can move on to our next presenter, which is going to be Frank Robert. Make sure you're unmuted, Frank.
I am unmuted.
All righty.
Good. Well, thank you guys so much for having me here too. It's a unique time. And when we think about it, the Reverend Dr. Andy Lunt always said every church wants two things. They want more money and more disciples. And so this opportunity, and that's our goal with the Mid-Atlantic Foundation, is to help churches have more resources so we can make more disciples. So this is a unique time. So next slide, let's get started. So let's not work on just one side of the equation. So we can work both on the inflow and the outflow of funds for the church. And so we think about it, and it's called cause marketing. So your church is in need and you have a cause and it is a priority. And so we came up with a quick 2-minute little video that Bill's hopefully going to show for you. And then I'll talk to you right after.
Hopefully this will work. Let's give it a shot.
Fingers crossed.
Now, for those who are a little worried that the sound went out, I just muted myself. Your ears are fine. Carry on, Frank.
Thanks, Bill. So just to recap, very simple 3 action steps that you can do now. So think about those key donors in your church. So when you think about it, these are the ones that really love your church and they want to help, but they need to have a ask, and they need to have a personal ask. And so many times it's very simple. Ask somebody, hey, John, I know you've been a big supporter of the church and you love the church very much. Could you think about front loading your giving for the year? I know you're one of our biggest tithers. And so can you give the next 3 or 4 months up front right off the bat? So there's some easy things to do. Many of our biggest givers are on fixed income. So the fluctuations of the stock market may not impact them as far as they may be retirees or other things. So they might have to worry about that. And they're going to be getting many of our folks are going to be getting government checks. And so we're hoping that they can donate these to the church. So think of that for your top givers. And then think about the second group, the middle givers. They have the time, talent, and maybe the treasure, but maybe they get the time and talent to help out the church more. They may be home and have some different talents that they can utilize helping the church at this time. And maybe they only give $25 or $30 a month, and you can ask them, hey, what about going up to $35 or $40 a month right now for this time? The increase or giving small. And then our biggest group may be those people that are on the margins and the elderly. And the key thing is we want to make sure that there's, number one, that they're safe, that their food's secure, and then they're still connected to the rest of the congregation. And there's different ways you can do that. I know many of the churches I've been talking to the last 2 weeks have created phone chains or email chains. And many of the phone chains have been very helpful. And then they'll flip them for the second week. So this is a good way to connect with their elderly in this really critical time. So let's go to the next slide. Because the bottom line is, it's really the church's time to shine. And that's what we're here for in times like unique times like this. So let's take this time where it's a distinct cause, and our churches are really a high priority now in people's lives. And so this is what we're here for. And go to the next slide. So what we've done, because we know the other side of the equation, many of our churches do need some of those cash flow issues. So we're securing a substantial line of credit for all those churches. We have over 400 church clients to help out with some of those short-term needs, so they don't have to sell their stocks to just get through short-term issues. And so our board will be voting on this tomorrow. So all the specifics are up to the board vote, and they may change around tomorrow. But that is our goal, is to have a line of credit to be able to help some of our churches. These would be loans, not grants. And we're in the process of streamlining the loan application process with the bank and our lending partners so to make it easier for people. And as always, we're waiving our commissions and fees for donors who want to contribute their stocks to churches directly. Do not have to be in an account that we manage for that church. So we're working with people to make it happen. We want to help our churches get more resources to make more disciples. And on the last page, we have a lot of different website resources, more information if you're looking for stewardship generosity and talking about these loan issues. They'll be on that midatlanticfoundation.org website. And then our gift and plan giving will be on the MAUMF Legacy website. That's complete with videos and has all the current information about all these different things that you heard about earlier on and all the plan giving. All the tax law up to the current week will be on that MAUMF Legacy website. And then that is the emergency funding plan if you want to utilize that later. My own email is right there for you and my own phone number. But take this time to teach the people in the church, this opportunity to give more in a time of need for your church, so your church can do more, maybe for people within the church themselves or the local community. So let's really make the church a center of resources to help out our community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Frank. And just to reiterate for people, this broadcast is being recorded. It will be available on the conference website tomorrow. All the slides will be available with all of the links on the conference website tomorrow. And I don't know if anyone can answer these questions, so I'll just lump them together. There's been a lot of specific questions about the grant to loan program. Paul, would you just recommend people ask those questions to their local bank if they have questions about the grants and the loans that are available through the federal program? Will their banks be able to answer those specific questions we're getting?
Yes, and the banks are going to know exactly what's required for your application. They'll be able to tell you exactly what information is needed and they'll tell you whether this is an online application, which I think it will turn out to be. And they'll tell you the link, and this is where you go, and this is how long it's going to take for you to be able to have it cleared and acted on. So those are all the questions for the bank.
Thank you so much, Paul. We can move on. We've got Bruce Beveridge, who is the chair of the Finance Committee at Mount Carmel United Methodist Church. Welcome, Bruce. Make sure you're unmuted. You are.
I am.
Walk us through. We have this wonderful chart again that you have used at your local church that we get to walk through again with some specifics. So walk us through this, Bruce.
Sure, thank you. Before I get into the chart, let me just back up. The first thing that we have done at our church was really in connection with our treasurer. We have run through multiple scenarios, and we tried to basically do what-if planning. So for churches with a preschool, what if we're shut down for all of April? What if we're shut down for all of May? What if we continue to pay salaries at 100% or at 50%? We've done the same thing with the church budget at different giving levels to see just exactly what does the situation look like. So that was step one. And then we've done three things. The first, which we've talked about, is talk to your bank. If you have a mortgage, which we do, and ours is rather significant, ask for mortgage deferment. Our bank is, it's in the process of being reviewed, but in talking to them, they were fairly optimistic that they would be able to grant a 3-month deferment of mortgage payments. So that was our step one. Step two was the Maryland COVID-19 Emergency Relief Grant Fund that Paul talked about earlier. It is a very simple application. I would say with one caveat, it would take less than an hour to fill out, as long as you have all of the information that you need. And as Paul said, you need 2 years of financial statements. We also have a weekly giving report that we attach to show that the offering levels were down. You'll need a W-9 for your church. You'll need the tax ID. The one thing that's on there, and Paul, maybe I have filled this out and completed it. The one question that wouldn't let me go past was unemployment insurance number. We don't have unemployment insurance, and I believe that's true for most churches. So I just typed in all zeros. We'll see if that causes a problem or not. But just one peculiarity.
I would ask Bruce if there are other churches who have done that, then send me an email and I'll get that out while we're on the call. Mine actually had numbers to insert. I did it for a non-church.
Okay. And then the last thing is they ask if you're a nonprofit is they wanted to see your tax exemption letter. That was the last piece of information. So if you get all that together, then it's a fairly straightforward application. So that's the relief grant fund from the state of Maryland. And then going to the chart that Paul had walked through earlier, the Paycheck Protection Program, this is the same chart, and we just did estimates on what our what 2 months worth of expenses looked like for our church. And again, without having the application, I made some estimates in terms of payroll. That was pretty straightforward, and we did it for both. For us, the preschool is a subsidiary of the church, so we have one tax ID number that covers both. So I put the payroll for both the preschool and the church staff in there. Benefits the same. The mortgage interest, I calculated that. If you don't have that, you could probably get that from your bank, if that applies. We didn't have rent. And then utilities, again, it hasn't been spelled out that I've seen yet. I just put gas, electric, water and sewer in for now. It's not clear whether telephone or cable, internet access would be covered. I guess those are some questions. Hopefully they'll get answered when we see the application. I called our bank about the application. They said the same thing, it's not ready yet. What they asked was, did we want to be put on a waiting list to get the application as soon as it's ready? And I obviously said yes. And they indicated it would be probably Monday that it would be ready. So that's been our experience so far.
Myself. Thank you very much, Bruce. There's a lot of questions coming in. Some of these we're going to just wait because we do have a couple of more presenters we have to get through, and our time is getting close. If you have a question that's not answered, we're keeping track of all the questions. We're putting an FAQ together that will be available later this week, and or you can contact one of the staff members who have been presenting tonight. So if we can move on to Kayla, if she's ready.
You can go to the next slide.
Thank you.
Yeah. To assist with understanding all of your options in your particular context, the stewardship team has set up consultation times in the areas of online giving, planned giving, benefits, and budgeting. If you're interested in any of these topics, please visit the coronavirus resource page on our website, which is linked on the screen right here, and scroll down to local church resources to sign up. Now on to Dave.
That was quick. Dave Scholler. I'm going to keep going. Are you with us, Dave?
I'm with you. That was quick. Okay, so I want to cover online giving, do a real quick recap on why it's always been important and highlight why it's immensely important in the times that we're in right now, and also pass along some great opportunities to sign up for it now more than ever. We've had some great deals with a vendor, and touch on just a various couple ways that it can serve your church. So on this first slide, if you are not using online giving, you're really offering just an offering plate way of collection, and it gives your members and visitors two options, checks and cash. Checks require forethought for most people, and so cash is really the most convenient during a church service. The problem that we have for today's society is that many people don't carry much cash anymore. A recent survey said that 76% of people carry less than $50 in cash with them, and 50% carry less than $20 in cash. So if you're still passing the plate around to your members and visitors, people are going to be limited to what they have in their pocket, which these days may be significantly less than they really want to give. On the check side, checks are definitely becoming less popular. If you want to get a blank stare, ask someone under the age of 30 to write you a check. They probably don't even know where that checkbook is. Fewer and fewer checks are written every year. So online giving offers a lot more flexibility for the way that people make transactions in this day and age. There's a graphic there at the top that shows the various ways that are available. You can have online forms and online giving for your church. You can have a mobile app that people load onto their phones. You can have a kiosk in your church, which benefits people that might not have internet access or maybe not comfortable with a computer. And also the best and simplest way is to simply use the text to giving or a text to give, where a member would just send a text message, and that is the fastest way to give. One common misconception which persists even today is when you're looking at online giving, people focus only on the costs or the processing fees. They look at, okay, we're getting X% or X dollars coming in our budget. If we switch to this electronic giving, then there's this % processing fee, and we're going to see that amount of giving be decreased by the processing fee. Just wanted to point out that that is a flawed logic in today's world. You are not trying to convert check givers to online giving, although that happens sometimes. What online giving is doing for your church is it's broadening the base of people that you're appealing to and making it easier for a broader base of people to give to your church. And also online giving tends to spur recurring gifts quite a bit more than check giving. And that really helps even out your cash flow during times of leaner times such as summer months. And then when we have the inevitable snow days in the wintertime, you can count on all those recurring gifts coming in regardless of the season or the weather. The online giver PushPay surveyed their customers, and they said that they saw a 75% increase in the number of recurring gifts within the first year for churches that rolled out online giving. So that's really a critical benefit. So people can give online at any time, and beyond just during the service, they can give before, during, and after. It may even be when they watch your video stream or your recorded YouTube video of your service. It might be when they're looking at your church newsletter to see a new campaign or fundraising initiative that's being launched. So it doesn't just limit you to when people are at your church in the pews or when they might have access to their checkbook. So this leads me to the proverbial elephant in the room on my previous slide, which is the COVID crisis that we're going on right now. So you can see on this slide, remote giving right now is the new normal. Many churches for the first time are moving their services online, and we are blessed to see a wide array of tools that churches are using to get their worship services out to their members, Zoom, YouTube, etc. Church members are worshiping in their homes. So when it comes to the receipt of tithes and offerings, these restrictions also mean that dropping a check in the offering plate is just simply not an option anymore. And now that we have even more restrictions that were rolled out this week in Maryland and other states, the church is also handicapped by the fact that they cannot even staff their offices to receive checks and process mail as quickly as they used to. So this is further complicating the flow of cash into the church during what's already kind of a crisis period in time. So the electronic giving cuts out all of those logistics that we're going to be seeing for, or restrictions in logistics we're going to be seeing for the next 4 to 8 weeks. When a person gives electronically, the money is deposited into the church's account typically in 2 to 3 business days. It doesn't require a treasurer to take it to the bank. Rain or shine, whether the church is open or not, that money is still going to flow into the church checking account where it can be used for bills. So that's a huge benefit right now. And then in addition to the actual cash flow benefit, the church is still able to report out and receive information on the givers, and they can link that information to programs like QuickBooks and church management systems. So you're getting more than just seeing something hit your bank account. You're getting full reporting on who gave, when they gave, and the amount, so that you can still interface with your money counters effectively. So if your church doesn't have an online giving system in place, we really do urge you to do so right now. We really don't see, and I personally can't imagine, a time where it's going to be a better opportunity and a bigger need to do so in probably a long, long time. So on the next slide, I wanted to highlight really what is a very fast and easy way for a church to put an online giving program in place. And it's also one that's typically not understood well. It's text giving, or text to give as some people call it. And I'll give you a quick primer on it. And what happens is a church is assigned a local phone number. It's theirs and theirs alone. And when a member decides that they are going to give via this method, the first time they decide to give, they simply would text the word give to that phone number. And the image there on the left-hand side shows what happens. They will get a link to a very short online form that they can fill out on their phone. And really all that is doing is linking their phone number to their information, their name, address, and phone number, and asking them for the method of giving that they want to use to tie to that text to giving moving forward. So the first time, that's the only thing the member is presented with. In addition, they're asked for whatever that first time gift is going to be. But then after that is really where the system pays dividends for a church. Because you'll see in that second image on the right, it is a matter of 5 or 10 seconds from the time a church member needs to give moving forward. They pull out their phone, they pull up that contact, they literally just type a number and hit send, and the gift is received by the church, and that's it. They are done. They can do this at their home, and you're streaming worship. You can say, now it's time for offering. Just a reminder, we offer text to give. Please text your gift to this number. And it really captures everyone, be it a first-time giver or repeat giver. You don't have to give out usernames, passwords, links, websites. All they do is pull up that number and either give for the first time or send their gift if it's their second and subsequent times. So it really is a fast way for churches to give. If a church has multiple funds that they would like to manage, say your church has a roof repair need and they launch a roof repair fund, all of that can be managed in church text to give. You simply go into your account and you set up a new account. You might just call it roof. And if somebody wants to give $10, $20, $50 to the roof fund, they would type in 50 and the word roof, and that amount goes straight into the roof fund, and it gets flagged as such on the report. So you're really not just limited to your general budget or general ties. You can have one or more or however many funds that you want to spin up with the system. And really, when it comes to this type of giving, this is called really a low friction type of giving method. And this is why charities such as Red Cross use this method to raise tens of millions of dollars a year, because it is what they call the lowest friction method possible. It gets the giver to give the money with as little effort in as short a period of time as possible between their desire to give and actually sending that amount. So on the next slide, wanted to talk to you about the options that you have available. On our webpage, we have tithing from a distance, and the link is shown there. And we have a number of online giving providers that offer services. I think we have 5 or 6. And all of those will offer a fairly standard suite of services. Some are more geared towards just payment processing, standard payment processing like PayPal. Others have a full suite of online services like Banco and others. Tonight, however, we do want to highlight what is a great opportunity for our churches to jump into the online giving right now. We have worked with Shelby Next Giving, and for those of you who are not familiar, Shelby Next Giving is part of a family of companies called Ministry Brands, and they are a group of services that are provided to local churches. And they have worked with us to come up with a very aggressive pricing plan and service options. You'll see there on the slide that the subscription fees can range from $0 per month up to $49 per month. And where we are most excited about this is, depending on the plan, you may see processing fees all the way down to 1.95%, which is extremely low for credit cards, and 0.7% for ACH transactions. So it's really going to be difficult to find a better deal than that right now on the market. We're really excited to offer that to all of our churches as an impetus to really kind of take the plunge into online giving. And this is really the perfect time at the crisis that we're going through. So the next slide is just a quick overview. There's a lot packed into that slide, but it shows that these pricing plans they don't represent kind of a pared down suite of services where the provider is going to start tacking on lots of a la carte fees. The text to give typically is a $50 or $25 to $50 add-on for a lot of companies. That is included. This package also includes the mobile giving app at no charge. Online store is offered in the top 2 tiers, and web forms and event payments are also included. So it's really a complete and comprehensive package for our local churches. So we're excited to offer that. So on the sign up side, the next slide, when you go to our webpage, the Tithing from a Distance, and you see the little quick synopsis of the Shelby service, you'll be able to download that pricing page that you saw on the previous slide, and you'll be able to click a link that will take you directly to Shelby's sign up page. And just make sure that when you complete that form, you enter, we have a special code. They're going to be looking out for the BWC churches to be signing up. The code is there on our webpage. It's BWC 2020, and it's the highlighted in yellow area there on the slide. Just make sure you enter that in. You can ignore the pricing that is shown on that form. That is kind of the stock pricing that is being offered for everybody else. Ours is a decent bit below that, so just ignore that. They will override that pricing when they get your form. Most importantly, once they get this form from you, Shelby has staffed up dramatically to make sure that these are processed as soon as possible. I spoke to our account rep, and they said they signed up 1,200 churches on Saturday and Sunday this past weekend alone. They have added more people and more trainers, and from the time you get, as soon as you send that form in, you will get an email that gives you everything you need to start jumping into the application process and sending things in. If you would like someone to walk you through that, they will also give you links to a live training session where somebody will walk you through the setup every step of the way. They will also give you all types of resources to help you implement this at your local church level. Everything from graphics for your ministry slides, postcards, letters, trifold brochure, art, videos that you can give to your church members right away that walk them through how to use the program. All of that is available, and they will give that to you and walk you through how to use it. So they really are dedicated to getting you up online and getting you to be able to use all the features this can bring as soon as possible. And then finally, as Kayla mentioned, if you would like to talk to us because you have more questions or concerns, feel free to use that scheduling tool, and Kayla and I will be scheduling those appointments with you, and we can answer any questions or concerns that you may have. So please consider this. It will be critical to help you weather this storm in the short term, and we really do believe that in the long term, it's going to put your church on a really on a firmer foundation financially and help your cash flow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So for those we have a lot of specific questions coming in for you, Dave. So I would recommend those with specific questions about how Shelby interacts with their church management software and comparisons of fees, who's using Shelby currently. I would suggest you reach out to Dave, please. But most importantly, Dave, are these systems secure so that church members' bank accounts will be safe?
Yes. So all of the systems that are used are all fully encrypted, whether it's an online form being used or any other method that the member is using to send in the amount. The text to give is very secure in that once the member has filled out that secure form, those messages moving forward, none of that contains their payment information. All of that's stored encrypted on their systems. So it is very safe and secure no matter where you're sending it or how you're sending it. So you can rest easy. And it's actually, in this day and age, more secure than some other types of payments where paper is being mailed back and forth and that type of thing.
Thank you very much, Dave. I'm going to quickly go back. So pardon the quick speed going back, but Kayla's got there is a great resource here, bwc.umc.org. Look for the coronavirus resources so that you can schedule consultations with Dave and with Kayla, and they can go over some of your specific questions that you are asking. Dave, how long will the special price last?
They did not give us a time frame on it. I know it's going to be at least 3 months. I would not be surprised if they extend it longer than that. So I would certainly encourage anyone to sign up for it sooner than later, not only just to take advantage of the pricing, but to help out with all the other benefits that online giving can give.
Thank you very much, Dave. I know we're running late, people. Thank you. There's a lot of information we've covered. A lot of you are hanging in with us. I appreciate your patience. We have one final presenter, last but not least, Francis Tego, who is our Director of HR and Benefits. Welcome, Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to cover some of the resources available to us by our HealthFlex program and pension plans, which is administered by Westpath Benefits and Investment. This is a very emotional time for all of us. So we want to say we do care. We care about your health and your emotional well-being. So for everyone on this webinar, this is a free resource that is available to anyone. You know, if you need any help, to call, it's provided by one of our vendors, Optum. It's a public crisis line that's available to anyone that needs help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This number is free of charge. And now I'll move on to our HealthFlex participant. These are information that have been shared already, some of it. So I just want to bring it up for people that haven't seen it or missed it. So we are all in this together. We need some help sometimes. So I just want you to be able to take advantage of the virtual EAP counseling that's available. There are 8 visits at no cost to our participants and dependents. Please utilize this service. There's also the no-cost nurse line, can be helpful in assessing symptoms and determining if you need to contact your local provider or a telemedicine provider. The number is on the screen. Normally, there's a consultation fee for using the telemedicine, MD Live. However, HealthFlex is waiving this fee, and that will go on till mid-June. So we advise that you use this tool to determine if you need to be seen or if testing is needed. The COVID-19 testing is covered by United Healthcare, and the testing is paid in full. But before you do so, please take advantage of one of the telemedicine or the nursing line before you go to get the testing done. The early prescription drug, this is offered by Optimum RX. They will allow you to fill your prescription medication if there are any refills remaining at your participating pharmacy, or if you do not have any refill, you can contact your provider so they can fill your prescription for you. Next slide. I know many of you are concerned about how the stock market fluctuations will impact your pension account, especially our 2020 retirees. Westpath has prepared an FAQ addressing several commonly asked questions. This document can be found on the Westpath COVID-19 page. Based on plan document, the benefit paid out for CRISP DB is not impacted by market increases or decreases because it is a formula-based payment at retirement. The MPP, CRISP DC, UMPIP, at retirement are based on account balances, which is subject to market fluctuation. So I will urge each one of you, if you would like to get more information about your account balances, please contact EY Financial Planning. It is free at no cost to you. In addition to the FAQs, Westpath is hosting 2 webinars for our 2020 retirees. And we're gonna ask that you please participate in one of them, April 1st and 2nd. The UMPIP loans. UMPIP investment account for clergy is also a retirement account. UMPIP is a personal investment account for clergy, and it is also a retirement account for our laity, eligible lay staff. There are specific conditions in which one can gain access to this account before retirement. Westpath is currently assessing their ability to provide on a short term easier access to hardship withdrawals and loans, or any other option that is feasible. We will publish that information as soon as it is made available. Next slide. In general, FMLA applies to any employer engaged in commerce and which employs at least 50 people. For the purpose of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, an employer must be engaged in commerce and must have fewer than 500 employees. Those employers that have not previously been subject to FMLA requirement because they have fewer than 50 employees will now have to provide 12 weeks of leave if they are engaged in commerce. An employee is entitled to take paid leave related to COVID-19 if the employee is unable to work, including unable to telework due to the related reasons of the Act. More information of the Act can be found on one of those links. One of them is a Department of Labor poster. This poster must be, it's the responsibility of the employer to post it on site or email it if your employees are teleworking. And these take effect April 1st, 2020. If you have any questions or would like detailed information about the topics I have introduced, please contact the Benefits Office. And as a gentle reminder to everyone, follow the CDC and WHO protocols for hand washing and other hygienic practices to reduce transmission of any illnesses. Please refrain from touching your face. Thank you, and God blessings to all.
There we go. Let's all take a deep breath. That was a lot of information. I know we ran over. Thank you everyone for your patience. We are working on an FAQ that will be available later this week. Hopefully we'll be able to answer all of the questions you've asked. I do want to tell everybody to stay tuned. Next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we're hosting another Training Tuesday with Dr. Deborah Haskins, who will be leading us through a seminar on leading in the midst of grief and trauma. So you will want to join us for that, particularly if you're a church leader, for how you can lead in the midst of what's going on now, but it's also good information for moving forward. I also have word from Eric Alsgaard, one of our communications people. If you have a success story or a story of interest of what your church is doing during this time of the COVID-19 crisis, please reach out to Eric. His information is available on the conference website, and he is continually working on articles for the Connection and the E-Connection and the conference website. So please reach out to him. He's got something written
I really want him to say something, Bill.
He has nothing to say. There's something on your pad, but I can't read it, Eric. I don't have my glasses. But Eric is collecting stories. He is a curator of stories that he likes to share. So please pass those on to Eric. Again, thank you to our panelists very much. Big applause for all of you. Thank you to everyone who has participated. We had over 700 people during this webinar at one time. And with that, I'm going to close us in prayer, and then we will move on with the rest of our evenings. Would you pray with me? Holy and gracious God, I give you thanks for the wisdom and knowledge you have given to all of our presenters and panelists that have been shared with us this evening. I thank you for the opportunity that even though we are separated, we can still connect through Zoom. I thank you for all the participants who logged on or called in tonight. I thank you for the wonderful questions, and I thank you for their passion that they have for their local churches. But most importantly, I give you thanks for the passion they have for you, oh God. So bless us as we continue to navigate these waters, as we continue to wander in this wilderness, knowing that you are guiding us through it all. Grant us insight and mercy, O God, that as we continue to lead your people, let them know that we're following you in the name of Jesus. Amen. And amen. Thank you all. Have a good evening, good night, and God bless.